Cliff, it's always a delight to see you, but particularly at this most wonderful time of year.
Yes, I love it.
I know you take issue with the fact that people say you own Christmas, but having had 3 legendary Christmas number ones...
4.
4, okay. I'm right at 4. Yeah. So talk me through the Mistletoe and Wine.
Well, let me get you the first one. It wasn't a Christmas song. It was called I Love You, and it was written by Bruce Welch of The Shadows and myself.
Right, okay.
That went to number 1.
That's the one.
But the Christmas ones were...
Saviour's Day.
Saviour's Day, Mistletoe and Wine.
And Mistletoe and Wine.
Yeah. I don't think there was another... Oh, wait, no, the only other one was not non-Christmas. It was The Next Time and Bachelor Boy. So everybody thinks I own Christmas, but only probably because I have released quite a few singles that haven't made number 1, but been in the top 20.
It's taken you 19 years to release a Christmas album again. What took you so long?
Well, I never really thought about redoing it because the danger is with Christmas, it's every year. But that's not the danger. It's great. I love it that it comes once a year. But if you start doing Christmas albums over and over again, it could really be boring. And showing that you've not got any initiative to do anything else. It was the record company, Warner Music, said, we'd like to do a Christmas album with you and we'd like it to be all classic old ones. And they sent me a list. I didn't know there were so many songs that people have recorded before. Anyway, I chose 9, and I found 3 new ones, and they were very happy with the new ones, so they are there in between all these songs.
Do you have a favourite?
Well, I have the one we've chosen to be the representative single, although we don't really release single records anymore, is the track called Heart of Christmas, which to us, all of us thought, oh, this could be in the charts. You can't really say, I know this is going to be number 1, because none of us know that. But sometimes you can get a feeling that this is chart worthy. So we chose that one. But I think the one that I'm going to like singing forever is Mary, Did You Know? It was written in the early 80s by a guy who, he's obviously a believer as such, and apparently it took him 3 years to put it together because he wanted to get all the theology right. So singing words like, Mary, did you know that your baby boy would walk on water? Did you know that one day he'd save our lives? It's just wonderful to read it out in my mind, and then to sing it is so emotional. So that'll be my favorite, I think. But the album, I worked with 2 producers, and I really tested them. I said, look, I've heard a lot of Christmas albums recently, but they don't really make me feel it's Christmas. People have sort of got afraid of jingle bells and things like that. And I got a rock and roll producer and one guy that did really softer music, still pop, but softer, and instrumental strings and things. And so 1 minute I'm singing, Mary, did you know? And the next I'm singing, rocking around the Christmas tree. So the dynamics are fabulous. And I said, you've given me exactly what I wanted. So now you know, it's in the end, you have to just hope it's what the public want. And they're the only ones that can decide.
Well, the public clearly do want it. We're looking at, another top 5 album in your 8th consecutive decade, yes, which is a phenomenal achievement. When they crunch numbers like that, how does it make you feel?
Well, first of all, you don't expect it because you can't plan it. I mean, there were 2 things that have happened to me that you could never plan. First was the knighthood. You can't, at 17, you can't say one day I'm going to be a knight. You just don't know. And it never was on my radar. And with the 5 decades, the 8 decades of top 5 records, again, you can't plan that. I started when I was 17 recording Move It in the corner of Studio 2 Albert Hall, 1958. 5 years before the Beatles, by the way. And then you, at those days, we'd be thinking, okay, what do we do next? What about next week? Where are we going to be next month? You don't think that the decades are going to fly by the way they do. So for me, it was my feet really haven't touched the ground, and I keep thinking, will anybody else do that? First of all, they've got to get as old as I am to be able to do it, and they've got to keep recording over and over and over again. In every decade you have, in every decade I must have made at least 4 or 5 albums. Yeah. So it gave me that kind of push that I didn't even think about, and it was wonderful to get that message from the people who ran the charts.
The album was recorded, the Christmas album was recorded in LA and Miami. Not particularly, you don't think of them as particularly festive places. I mean, here we are with a tree and a roaring fire, and I love what you've done with the place. I'd probably knock through if it was me, but it's a great place to celebrate Christmas.
Well, it is.
But how was it? So recording in Miami and LA, because I know you mentioned the Beatles, of course, and you used to have to battle with the Beatles to get a slot in Abbey Road
Yes.
Studios, of course, but I know nevertheless you're very fond of that venue. And the studio always just a natural home. I would imagine for you, at the minute you walk through the door, the years that you speak of just fall away, right?
It was my birthplace when you think about it. It was where I started. And if it's true that the Shadows and I were pioneering, we went on our own. There was Dickie Valentine, he was pre us, Marty Wilde, Dickie Pride, and between us. But you see, apparently the Move It record that I made was the first record that sounded a little bit American. And that took me to number 2 in the charts. So if that's true, then that's where I was born. That corner, I remember standing there singing Move It a few times over, and then being told by the producer, Norrie Paramore, he said, it's not quite sounding right. Can you just pick up your guitar? I said, but you told me I'm not playing guitar on it. He said, no, you're not playing it, you're just holding it. And you know what? Getting hold of it again, and he said, that's it. Take 100 is the one. That wasn't, take 5 or whatever it was. And that became the first big hit. And it's terrific for me. I know that the Beatles have got everybody thinks they owned Abbey Road, and they didn't. I did. I just rented to them for a while.
What did you think people say it's like working with Sir Cliff? Because obviously, given the length of your extraordinary career, do you think there's ever a point where people might be intimidated by coming into the studio with you? I mean, because you've seen it all and done it all.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't think people are not really intimidated if you've seen it all and done it all, you know. And sometimes newer artists don't need that. They prefer to think, oh, well, I know what I'm doing, and hopefully they do. When people say, you know, how's it the success has continued? I said, you know, honestly, how can I tell you how I did it? I must have done it right, but I don't know what it is. It's like people say, oh, you got the X Factor, and I'm thinking, maybe I have, but I couldn't tell you what it is. And if you told me, oh, it's the way you smile, what would I do? Hello, everybody. It would ruin it. So I don't know how I've stayed the ground. And for me now, with the Stormzy story coming out, and that I'm competing with probably the guy who's the biggest selling artist in this decade, and here's me, 65 years of singing, and he has to compete with me.
I just love it. The fact that Stormzy and your good self are in the same breath at this time of year, particularly against the backdrop of the times we live in, has to be my favourite story, apart from the original one, obviously, of the festive season. This is extraordinary. When you get news like that you're taking on Stormzy, in the charts.
I don't live here anymore, so I didn't even know who he was.
So you couldn't pick him out of the lineup?
No, well, I mean, I live in Barbados, and I'm not sure if he's made it in the States. He probably will, because they like rap stuff there. But I didn't really know who he was. And I said, well, who is he? What is he doing? He said, oh, he started in 2014, I think. And I thought, oh, quite young. but you know, it's always been a competition. You know, this period of the year is when all of us sold more records. Yeah. Now, of course, the whole thing changed, and people don't buy as many records as they do, but it's still the place. If you want to sell records, between October and December is the place to do it. So he's doing it, and I've always done it, but I have never got through easily. It's always been competition. It's always been a competition with somebody else. And if you've got the better record, then you've got it. I mean, I've got look, this is Stormzy's album. Now, I was looking at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 tracks on his album. Ladies and gentlemen, my album has 13 tracks. So in a way...
So unlucky for Stormzy.
But it's fun. No, this is Stormzy's album. He hasn't got his name on the front, which I find strange, but there it is on the inside. And you know, it doesn't bother me. As I said to an interviewer just a couple of days ago, that I was going to say, may the best man win. But I'm not going to say it because he might win. But it's fun. Promotion for an album sometimes can be really boring and relentless.
Thank you.
Suddenly...
I'm doing my best.
You are. But the thing is, because of this happening, it suddenly made it fun again.
Yeah.
It used to be fun, and then suddenly it became very heated. But I'm just having fun to think that I'm alongside him, whether he likes it or not.
You're both bringing joy to the world and joy to the hood. You're not just all about Christmas, you're all about the New Year as well, because you're on everybody's walls, Sir Cliff. The calendar, of course, is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. We started off and I was in Barbados, I think, for the first calendar, and we took shots there, and suddenly it was #1. And then we've done it for like 20 odd years now. And at the one time I said, look, this face can only smile this way a few times. And you can only lean like this or do that. And I said, I don't think I want to do anymore. So last year's calendar, which did get to #1, a friend of mine has a niece who's quite arty. And she used my iPhone to photograph the calendar. She went round in New York, because I was there at the time, found little different places, and we did it. And so you don't really need to have too much to do a thing like that. And she took good photographs, and the fans liked it, and it was #1. So this year, I think the calendar is, I don't think I know, it's been photographed by people who came to the last gig.
Yeah.
And it's there, because of the quality of these iPads and iPhones, they look like very good shots. So we said, they like it. They like the fact that they've taken the picture. They got their name on the picture. I took that picture of Cliff. So we've got our fingers crossed, but it must come to an end.
My team at
Let's do
GMB do not want it to come to an end, because many of the year at this time, they put my head on your body, Sir Cliff, and frankly, I look all the better for it, if I'm being brutally honest. You're on the road again. I mean, you're 82 years old. We're looking forward to a tour next year.
It's not, well, it is a tour, but it's only 8 days.
Right.
I mean, I can remember the time when we played to over 500,000 people over a period of about 4 months, 5 months. And I'm thinking, and I remember those days, I was much younger, so I could deal with it better, but the terror was always there. Every morning you'd wake up somewhere and go, oh, I've got that, and you prayed that you were just going to get through that night.
Yeah.
So the pressure was really heavy. So now, when I do a tour, I think the last tour I did was only about 17 or 18 shows. This one is just 8, because I made it was too late for us to really get it. I suddenly said, look, I'm doing this album, and why can't I do a Christmas show? And I wanted to go to the Albert Hall, but it turns out that, you have to book really early. My manager said to me, there was a time when we booked it 5 years ahead, and there's many times when we booked it 2 years ahead. And here am I asking for it for next year, and it was out of the question. So I thought, well, I'd like to do something. It won't be a fully Christmas show. It'll be a mixture of stuff from this new album, and probably the 2 #1s. I'll definitely do that. And then I'll do the stuff that made everybody give me a career.
Like any artist, you do worry about the voice.
Yes.
And, waking up one day and the voice not being there.
Yeah.
And how do you cope with that? I'm not even going to mention the R word, retire, because I know you always diss that by saying, well, anyone who retires, well, then there's always a comeback, isn't there?
Yes.
And you don't want to be that comeback kid.
No, because every time artists have finished, and then they do make 4 comebacks, and every time I hear of a comeback, I think, they've run out of money. And I don't want people saying that about me, so I'd rather stop. I don't have to announce, oh, I've stopped. But if I stop, I can just wait a couple of years maybe and say, phone, and maybe that's the way to do it. Retire for 2 years, but don't tell anybody, and book the Albert Hall 2 years beforehand and then come back and do a week or 2 at the Albert Hall, and it would be easier and it would be fun, and I'd still be able to contact and be with fans. So that's my idea, but whether it works that way, I don't know.
It's always a joy to be with you. Can I come to yours for Christmas in Barbados?
Well, no, this year I'm going to be in Florida. I've been invited there by a whole bunch of friends.
Oh.
And for me, they become kind of special friends because, I'm not really known in America. So when I met these people, the third time they'd say to me, well, what do you do for a living? And I said, you know my name, don't you? And they said, yeah, Cliff Richard. I said, Google me. So the next time I meet them, they go, hush my mouth. And so they were friends of mine before they even knew what I did for a living. So it's kind of special. And they're very sociable in Florida anyway. Yeah, but Christmas in Barbados is in both areas, you're in warm weather, which appeals to me. And sometimes when I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas comes on. You're looking out the window thinking it's 98 degrees. It's not going to happen. But I liked it in Barbados very much, even though the first year it took me about 4 hours to put the Christmas tree up. It was a really tall one because the ceilings are high, in about 4 pieces. And I had 3 showers because it was so hot.
It was so tropical.
I know.
Well, if you Google me, can I come to Florida then?
Absolutely.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I'd be absolutely delighted. I'd have to bring my mum. She's 85, but she can throw some shades.
Does she dance?
Well, she's widowed as well. So maybe I'm slightly nervous about it.
Honestly.
Cliff, I love you, mate. It's always a delight.
Richard, thank you so
Compliments
much.
of the season. I know your faith is hugely strong with you,
Thank
and
you.
it's much needed at this time of year.
It certainly is. And it's, in this time, it's certainly needed. The world seems to be falling apart.
It does indeed, but you certainly are not. We look forward to the tour. We're loving the album. Okay. And let's talk very briefly before I let you go as well about a cheeky little show you got coming up on the BBC as well.
Yes. The funny thing is I was meant to film it about, 3 or 4 months ago. And of course the Queen died. And I was rehearsing with Andrea Corr, who's a gorgeous girl and a gorgeous singer. And the family are very multi-talented.
I love that.
Anyway, she said she would sing Saviour's Day with me. So we were rehearsing that. The next day we were supposed to film it. The Queen died on the last day of rehearsals and the BBC postponed it. Now I'm thinking, I'm going to lose Andrea Corr. And so we just hoped for the best. And finally we got the dates and she said, I will be there. Now I discovered when I talked to her that she was supposed to be in Australia with her 2 sisters and brother. And she just said to them, you go, I'll follow up. And she stayed and did my show and that night flew to Australia. I've never hugged an artist so much. She was so fantastic. She did not let us down, didn't want to let us down and wanted to be there. So we do have a fantastic sort of camaraderie within our world. Because when you do a Royal Command show, for instance, you'll suddenly be there with Paul McCartney and Elton John and Shirley Bassey, and you're rushing in and out of each other's dressing rooms and taking pictures, and then you have to wait another 5 years before you meet. So it is tough to have a relationship, but she's certainly a gorgeous girl. I really appreciated her actually staying to do it and then having that 24-hour journey.
So, Cliff, we have a little bit of a surprise for you. This was actually awarded to you in 2020 by the Worshipful Company of Musicians. But, of course, they couldn't give it to you, given the times.
I wasn't available. I don't think I was in the country.
It's a Lifetime Achievement Award for your good self, sir.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm thrilled. I mean, anytime anybody gets an award, you can never get used to the idea of having awards, and this is fantastic. And I have been around a long time. So terrific. Looking at that, I think I'd like to frame it rather than have it in a little box closed up. So I think I'll do that. Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you, Worshipful Company of Musicians. Thank you.